Hi, so welcome into Journey into Parenting. So this channel is dedicated to helping you prepare for becoming a parent and helping you thrive in the kind of early weeks and months with your new baby. I've written a book called Spirited, which is a creative workbook to prepare you for the adventure of parenting. And I'm really excited to have Michael Ray here today, so welcome. So it's like bedtime here in the UK. It's really super early in the morning for Michael, and I think he's already done a workout today. Is that true?
Yes.
I'm really impressed. One of the things I wanted to talk about was I guess the work I do is about nurturing people and helping them find resilience so that they can really show up for their children and for themselves. But I think one of the things that strikes me is that we're kind of really up against it as parents, in the sense that our society isn't necessarily kind of set up to support us in the way that we need. So, often it can be a kind of uphill struggle that, even if you're trying incredibly hard, it can still feel like a really difficult task. So yeah, it'd be great to hear your thoughts on that.
Oh, definitely, Nina. It frustrates me that a lot of our society's ills and what we struggle with come down to less than optimal parenting, in my opinion. And as parents, we're all doing our best. Every single parent I know is doing the best with what they can. But when we look at mental health, crime, even your domestic violence, so much of it comes down to how our children start off, and our families simply aren't prioritised in today's society. I think one of the problems has been the well-meaning equality movement has for too long classified breadwinning as somehow separate to caregiving rather than a vital part of it. And when you look at the outcomes for the 20% of children who live in poverty, it's not good, accounting, for all factors. A fantastic parent living in poverty is still going to have, less than optimal outcomes, despite their best things. So it's actually enabled workplaces to be less than considerate and definitely not accommodating as far as being a parent, especially single parent, and trying to provide for your children. So they've kept them in two separate camps for too long. Now it's just starting to realise that to retain and get good talent, and a lot of the talents we bring as parents actually translate quite well into the workforce, having to be able to multitask and plan our time and keep all those balls up in the air. They're actually great skills to have for workplaces.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think going back to what you said first, that it's something that I feel really strongly that actually the work that we do as parents is laying the foundations for the whole rest of society. Like, we're literally shaping our babies' brains by how we care for them in the early stages. And if we don't have the right support to be able to meet their needs, then, that baby is going to become kind of anxious and insecure later on, and then that's going to cause problems that kind of continue on throughout their life, potentially, unless there's intervention. But it's kind of fascinating to me that this, I guess we're starting a movement of raising awareness of this issue, but once you've seen it, it just seems so obvious, that of course, like, how we raise our children is really, really important, but somehow parenting's been very marginalized somehow, like kind of quite separated off from the rest of society.
Yes, definitely. And culturally, we've drifted further and further away from it as life's gotten busier and busier. And because it's not immediate in its effect, we don't see the outcomes of it. And I think as we struggle with that disconnection and isolation and loneliness, it comes back to not having that firm anchor of connection with our family.
Yeah, and I think also, like, often people choose to go back to work just because they're feeling bored or they're feeling isolated, and actually it's not necessarily the best thing for their child for them to do that. So again, if there were sort of better ways of supporting parents, then they wouldn't need to kind of, I guess, make a choice between those two things.
Yeah, a lot of the system too. Here in Australia, we don't have a national shared parental leave.
Okay.
So when we talk about the unpaid and undervalued nature of parenting, fathers here in Australia are entitled to 2 weeks at minimum pay after their child is born. And that sets the tone and trajectory that locks men into that, well, I've got to go off and earn money to be able to support my family. Mum, you need to stay home. And that just locks in these outdated gender expectations and roles that are just terrible.
Yeah, and I imagine it creates sort of frustration and potentially some kind of, you know, awkward power dynamics and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and the worst thing is, because I get to participate in a lot of conversations with groups of mums, because normally I'm the only dad there during the ballet and, you know, the school help and all of the rest of it. And then I still get to participate with my dad friends as a peer. A lot of what mums want, dads can solve. Dads want more time with their kids and not to miss those milestones. Mums want to get back out and not just be a mum and get back into the workplace. And, you know, in Australia, we have administered specifically to stop what was called the brain drain. Our best and brightest being lured overseas straight out of college and lured from our industry because they're saying, what a waste. Yet I know so many women that are so qualified, have so much experience, that are basically locked into the role now of being a mum, want to get back into the workforce, but because dad gets paid so much more, they simply can't afford it to start her career again from scratch, because she took 2 years out to parent in the beginning because, you know, dad didn't have access to that maternity leave or parental leave. And that's the frustrating thing. It's maddening.
Yeah, it's great. I love to see the passion that you have for this subject coming through as you talk about it, and just kind of the fact that there are so many incredibly capable and educated women, and, you know, it can be such a struggle. Like, I guess the kind of the self-confidence that you lose by dedicating years of your life to parenting, whereas actually, like you said, you're learning all kinds of other skills like time management and, you know, how to be compassionate and efficient and all of these kind of things that are actually incredibly useful. Yeah, I was quite lucky because, well, in some ways not, because I've been a single parent as well for the whole time, but I'm from a circus background. And in the circus community, children are very integrated. So I was able to kind of, you know, get back to performing quite quickly and just bring my son along with me to work. And I sort of found that very, like, yeah, very nourishing, because I didn't have to compromise on parenting, and I still got to kind of have my career, which was really great.
Right.
Yeah. What would be your kind of doable request to employers? Like, what would you encourage them to do?
Rather than try and keep the parental responsibility separate, to actually encourage it. What I find when I speak to organisations, nearly everyone is a parent up in management, but they came from a time where generational, where there was a stay-at-home parent, and simply most people can't afford it nowadays. But it also comes down to choice. Women in Australia are graduating with more degrees and better qualifications from university, and then they get trapped into the parenthood thing and want to get back to work. Efficient teams are all about supporting and building people up. And once you know that you're cared for and that you matter outside of what you can produce at work, and all of that's accommodated, you've got the best workforce, and a grateful, involved workforce is great. I find a lot of parallels between great leadership and great parenting.
I was
Once
gonna,
you know,
yeah, I was gonna ask about that, because I think like something that I really value is emotional maturity. Like I often think, wouldn't it be great if the people who are kind of in charge of decision making about the country were also the most emotionally mature? And I think that yeah, parenting helps us to kind of develop a lot of compassion and emotional maturity.
nothing leads you quicker to consider the consequences of your actions and decisions than being a parent. So there's a lot of consideration that once you get the hang of it, then going, gee, I've said no without really thinking, just because it's easier to say no. But now I've backed myself into a corner where I'm a little bit unfair. I need to say, I probably should say yes, but then I'm setting the standard where if I say no, it's no. If I say yes, it's maybe, and all the rest of it. So that consideration of how your decisions are going to impact the team, because as I always say to my daughter Charlie, Bub, we're a team. Your input and your contribution matters, and it's important. So
yeah,
you
that's
being
beautiful.
I'm not just asking what can you do. You think what you can do to make it a bit easier, so that then we can get to the park and things like that. And she's brilliant with her things. She's, oh, Dad, I'm going to do this and do that and do that when I get home, and then we should have time to get to the park. And it's like, great, but that would be a huge help. I appreciate it. And just knowing that a contribution is valued and it matters, happens. And that's why I say to leaders, it's the same in your workforce. You can either manipulate or inspire behaviour. And that manipulation with parents, whether it's rewards or star charts or all the rest of it, once that manipulation's removed, their intrinsic or their internal motivation to do things is gone. So you've got to inspire it by your example. So
that's beautiful. Yeah. And I think it's like, it might take slightly more effort in the beginning, but then it pays off hugely in the end, I think.
In business, we have two things. It's called the lead and the lag. Today is the lag. It's the result of what we did in the months preceding. So when we're going, no customers, business is quiet, all the rest of it, it's not today. It's the stuff you did leading up to it. And that's what happens with parenting as well. So it's the stuff that you did, the practices, the routines, the values that you instilled and displayed are the things that now are paying off. So a lot of the times, because we've become so busy, we're in the here and now, and we're parenting by crisis rather than looking. And that's why I'd say not only in management but in parenting, we need just one eye on the task at hand, but we need a vision for the life ahead. So that's where it's my whole thing is about, I'm 50 years older than Charlie, so my job basically is to prepare her for a life without me, and doing everything for her and telling her how to do things isn't going to prepare her for the life ahead. So leaving it up to her, getting her to ask questions, and having a vision for the developmental needs where it builds. Now she's mastered that, she can go on to this. Whereas I think a lot of us with parenting, because we've become so busy, that rush to move them through those developmental stages into our adult world is actually counterproductive, and it leaves them ill-equipped and ill-prepared for their life as an adult, because you can't build on top of a shaky foundation. So slow down, take your time, and accept your child is exactly the child she's meant to be, and your job is to help her to discover, not shape her, but support her and make her happy and self-confident, and to know her value and to recognise when others don't, rather than trying to, if we hold back our love, if we make her work for our attention and all the rest of it, in my opinion, she's going to go off and do it. And we can't be surprised if we're a controlling, coercive type of parent, that either our children are going to grow up to be controlling and coercive, or to seek out a partner that
Mhm.
is controlling, coercive.
Mhm.
So I'm constantly, Charlie, if I say something that's not right, pull me up. If I speak to you in a way that makes you feel uncomfortable,
Mm.
tell me. And
Okay. Yeah.
the questions I ask her is, not, there's always, but how did you feel? When she'll say, I did this and did that, yeah, but how did you feel afterwards? Pretty,
Mhm.
she was really happy that I did it. Yeah, concentrate on how you feel. So if somebody asks you to do something and it doesn't feel right, and if you don't think it's going to make you feel how you like to feel about yourself, don't do it. Be polite and explain to them, no, I'm not going to do it. So it doesn't fit in. So it's about the values and the character that we uncover within them.
Yeah, that's great. I trained as a Steiner teacher actually along the way as well, and that approach is all very much well. The one of the phrases they gave us was to draw the learning out of the children. So rather than trying to kind of fill children full of facts, just to kind of provide an environment in which they want to learn, and just kind of, yeah, like you say, allow them to be themselves. And I've kind of very much done that as well in my
Yeah,
parenting. And there are moments when it's felt a bit scary because it takes a lot of trust. Like you've really got to kind of trust the unfolding of your child's own development. But I've found it really amazing that actually I think that trust's paid off, and that actually if we don't squash it out of them, children have got an incredible desire to learn actually.
yeah, that's what I say. I don't. There are people way smarter than me that'll fill it with the actual knowledge and facts and things that you want to know. But it's up to me to fuel that curiosity. It's her attitude I parent for, rather than I
Mm-hmm.
want her to be sure of a why rather than her how. And
I'm making a quick video just to explain the fact that sadly I lost the connection to Michael Ray, so the interview was cut slightly short. I will transcribe the talk in the show notes for you, and also I will put links to Michael's work and to the free workshops that I've got coming up for parents to be and for new parents as well. Thank you so much. I'd love to hear your comments and for you to share this video. Thank you.